Okay, so you're planning your dream trip and you're trying to figure out what to do, how much to budget, and where to store all this information. Well, as someone who's been planning her own trips for the better part of a decade, whether in the US, abroad, on planes, trains, volcanoes, or even solo, I have the tips just for you. Hi, for those who may be new here, my name is Sojourner, aka Sojourneys, aka the Train Travel Queen. I am a travel vlogger, meaning I plan and go on a lot of trips. Like normally if I'm on a trip, I'm probably planning or preparing for the next 1 or 2 or 3 I have on my itinerary, literally. And staying organized and tracking your expenses and activities can seem really daunting unless you have your own system. So I will be showing you not only my favorite travel websites and tools to use to plan my trips, but how I keep everything organized in my Notion template. And of course, I'm gonna have all my tips and tricks on my Notion for this video, making sure I tell y'all all the things that you need to know to keep yourself on track and enjoy your dream vacation. There are a lot of different systems and project management platforms you can use, but I preferably love Notion to keep me organized. So here is what my travel calendar looks like, and I'm gonna guide you through each section and kind of give you a little background as to why it's organized this way. And get this template, it will be linked in the description box below, because I won't be showing you how to make it, but more kind of showing you how to use it and how it can be really good for your future trips that you may be planning right now. So it's called Sojourner Travel Calendar. Obviously you can change it based off of your name. I put a start here section, and these are just kind of my general high level sections. So I have a packing list here. This I kind of put in different types of trips just to keep in mind of things that I would probably bring on those trips. Now this is gonna vary. I do specify it a bit more once it's actually time for me to go on a trip and pack, but I did put like basic things that I would be bringing for each kind of trip, whether it's a train trip or a hiking trip or a solo trip. There may be different things I'll need, and so that kind of holds all that information for when I'm a little frazzled or waited to pack at the very last minute and I need to kind of make sure I got what I need. Those packing lists are there to aid me in that. I also have a travel journal that's a bit more personal. I just put some thoughts or feelings that I'm having as I'm traveling, which may become a voiceover of a vlog later on, because I tend to take some journal entries and make them part of the vlogs, a fun fact. But sometimes it's just notes for me to remember about how I felt eating a certain food or seeing a certain place, which I think is really cute to document your memories for yourself. I also have a pre-trip checklist, and that is different from the packing list because it's more of things I'll probably need for every single trip. Like it'll have my passport, it'll have maybe my global entry card, it'll have all those things that I need in order to prepare for most trips that I take. So that again is high level general information. And the last section under the start here is just important context, like my family that I want to have here. So that's just personal stuff to have. You don't have to have those things, but I like having all that important information right there and easily accessible. Underneath that, we have the maps. And honestly, I just put this here because it was travel themed and I thought it was cute. So anytime I'm thinking about new places to go to, I may just like look at the map and see where stuff is and learn more about the geography of places to get inspired. But that's really just there because it was a cute widget. Because the main thing that I work in this template is these different cards, and I'm showing you the completed section. I do have an upcoming section for upcoming trips, but I have not gone on them yet and they have personal information, so we're gonna not show those on the internet. But you can see all of my completed trips from the year: Alaska, Japan, Hanoi, Boston, Hyannis, Martha's Vineyard, Sapa, Shreveport, and Switzerland. But I do love these little cards they have in Notion because you can customize them and personalize them based on what you like. So for me, I put a photo that I just get from Notion system. I think it's called Unsplash. I just look up the location and pick a cute photo as the cover photo. I put the name of the place that I'm going. I put the flag, most likely of the country I'm visiting. Right now it says completed. If I were going on these trips, the status will be upcoming, and I put the date. So I can see all that information, and I have it organized in Notion system. So let's actually go in and kind of show you a bare bones template so you know what it looks like. So here is what a general travel planning template looks like with no information in it. And I'm just kind of gonna go over each section so you understand each part. And also this inputs immediately, so you don't have to recreate this. The minute you click new page, it will populate this automatically. Anyway, back to accommodation. I put the hotel name, check in and check out, and I thought it would make sense to add a file in here so that you can upload your hotel reservation as well. But I think realistically you're probably going to be on your phone when you are checking in, so there is a Notion app you can use in order to kind of show your reservation number, your confirmation number, all the information they ask when you check into a hotel. So that's why I put that file in there, just for ease, because I hate standing there and like scrolling through my email trying to find what they're asking me for. The second section is flight information. So outbound and inbound flight information, you can put in there airport, time, flight number, all that good stuff. And you can also upload files there too. And of course, as the train travel queen, I do have a train information portion of this template with similar information to the flight, outbound and inbound train. Again, you can upload files for any confirmation documents you have, any PDFs for those different forms of transportation. And I will say too, this section does change, and I'll show you what it looks like in a more completed version from a past trip, because I may be taking a bus or a ferry. So I'll just change the train icons and the train name based off of what transportation I'm actually taking on the trip if I want to. So those two are kind of the easy sections, I would say. The very meaty, more tedious section is the trip itinerary, and I divided that up into two categories. And I'm actually going to start with trip plan because it feeds into the trip board that you see that's more of a daily overview. So under trip plan, I have different categories. The first one is sightseeing. The second one is the attraction type. The third one is the day. The fourth one is the cost. And then I have like a little check mark column here to just check things off as I do them. So for sightseeing, you would input where you want to go, what you want to see into that first column. Then you would click the box and look at attraction type. And so here you have different categories. Now I did these based off how I travel, but you can always add different categories based on the things you want to see. But I have bookstore, cafe, market, park, tourist attraction, mall, museum, restaurant, and bar. And I don't know if this is like 100% necessary, but I do like seeing the different things I'll be doing and kind of the different variety of itineraries I create on these trips. In the third column, you'll put what day you want to do said attraction, and that day column will feed into the trip board. So if you put on day one, let's say you're in New York City and you want to go see the Statue of Liberty, if you type in day one, or you choose day one, I should say, as the option for the part of the itinerary you want to do that activity, it will populate up in your trip board. So those two things are connected. So anything you change under the day in the trip plan will be replicated on the trip board, which is why I have the trip board first, so you can see your itinerary realistically as you're walking or sightseeing while you're on your trip. The fourth column is the cost, so to track that expense, and the last column is for when you finish an activity, you would just go and check it off. And the last section of my template is the trip budget. And this is also a table, and it has some key expenses in the first column, like flights, trains, accommodations, food and drink, shopping, insurance, transportation, any of those expenses categories you can put in the table here. You can put the cost that you're budgeting. So if you don't want to spend any more than $500 on flights, you would put that in there. And then I also like to track the actual expense because prices fluctuate so much. So I always think it's interesting to see what I assume a thing will cost and how much it actually costs. And as you can see at the bottom, this also shows you the sum, similar to under trip plan in that cost column. Under the budgeted cost and actual expense columns in the trip budget, you'll also see the sum of those. So you can see how much you budgeted versus how much you actually went over budget, under budget, or actually spent on a trip. So that is a very rough overview of the itinerary. And if you're curious what this looks like when you're actively on a trip and inputting all the information into the template, here is mine from my trip to Boston back in July. So you can see I added my confirmation for my hotel. I put my flight information, who I was flying, as well as my bus information. So I changed that section once it got put into my template from train to bus. And if you go down to the trip itinerary, you can see how I outlined my itinerary and also how it coincides with the trip plan and the trip board. So if I were to move around some of these options, and let's say instead of putting Neptune Oyster on day 1, I go and put it on day 3, it'll instantly change up top in the trip board based on the trip plan. So you're able to maneuver and switch up your itinerary anytime you feel like it, which I think is really great because things change while you're traveling. And at the bottom of each expense column, you can see that there is a formula already in there for the sum. So when you do input how much you're spending on things, whether it's your budgeted cost or the actual expense, it'll automatically add it all up. So this is what it'll look like when you are actively using the template. So that is my Notion template. It's very basic and straightforward. I think, in my opinion, to be very easy to go in and track all the things you want to track on your trip. And since we've been talking about budgeting, I did want to give some tips and advice on how to create a budget for a trip that you want to go on. A common question that I've got from people in the community here online, but also in general, is like, how do you plan a budget? And I'm going to say, currently in this present moment, Sojourner at 30 with no kids, just out here being financially free and doing what she wants to do, goes off of vibes most of the time. I'm just like mentally tracking, okay, I spent that much money yesterday on that. Maybe I need to not do that much today. You know, like a lot of it is just mental math, okay? Black girl math. Essentially is what I'm doing on most of my trip. And I will say I am categorized, I think, as an in-between traveler, hence bougie on a budget. Before I became a full-time travel creator, I still found ways to prioritize travel. And the first thing I would do would be saving or minimizing my expenses as much as I can. For your travel fund, save like 10 to 20% of your paycheck to go towards, you know, a savings account that's just reserved for travel. So if you want to do that, I think that's a great idea. I did used to put some money away every paycheck, collecting funds for like that cooking class or that hiking experience that I would want to do on a trip. I also try to cook more at home versus going out to eat, so I have more money to eat while I'm traveling. And before I became a nail girly, I did not get my nails done. I think you save a lot of money because I do love them, but getting your nails done is a little expensive. So you want to be thinking about what are those luxuries perhaps in your life that you don't necessarily need, that you may want to cut out, and how can you reallocate that money to go to something else. My second tip is to follow the flight deals. I've been a part of the newsletter Scott Sheet Flights, which is now called Going. That is like a subscriber based list where they send me flight deals based off of the airports near me, and that's how I've gotten some really incredible deals. Like I think to Panama City, my flight was like $300 round trip. My trip to South Africa was $600 round trip, and obviously that was a few years ago, so it's not like the current market for flight prices, but that's how I was able to get a lot of deals, and that's what I recommend. Also, setting Google alerts on Google Flights is a great way to kind of see, okay, what are my options during this time? Where can I go? I have time free. I would also say a third tip is having financial awareness about the locations you want to visit. For example, I was just in Switzerland a few weeks ago on a partnership, and Switzerland would not have been a place I would even think about when I was a broke grad student excited to get a $150 round trip flight to Mexico. Okay, like you have to understand the currency of the place you're going in to see how your money will stretch, for lack of a better word. There's a lot of privilege in that, especially if you have like the US dollar or you have Western currency as your primary currency. But you want to be thinking about how much am I going to actually spend in this location when I calculate the conversion rate, right? I was not doing luxury trips when I was a broke grad student in the way that I have done quite a few luxury trips now when you think about the luxury of training dream travel. So having that financial awareness of not only your own finances, but the finances and like what it's like to exist in a country you want to visit is really helpful when creating your budget. But the main thing I would say is figuring out what you actually want to spend your money on and what is worth it for you. I always tell people to ask themselves, what are your travel non-negotiables? Like if you are somebody who needs to stay in a 5-star hotel, 5-star resort every time you travel, you may not have the funds for all the activities you want to do if most of your budget is going to your hotel, right? So are you willing to compromise and take a 3-star or a 4-star hotel so that you have more in your activities fund to take a cooking class or to do a hiking experience? Or what else do I do on my trips? Y'all know I love to eat, so I'm always down to go and have a very unique eating experience. Like, do you want to take that train ride or do you want to take the bus because it's cheaper? You know, think about that when you're planning your budget, because I think that is really dependent on who you are as a person. I know people want like a formula to figure out the budget just for them for a trip. It's just really hard to say you need to have this amount of money for this trip every time, because some folks like to go shopping. Some folks like to go eat at more expensive restaurants, right? And I also feel like people don't have the same access to flight deals. Like as someone based in the Midwest, the flight deals I see on the coast, we're not getting over here. And so that can drastically change your budget. If you can fly New York City to Portugal for $350, but for me that's probably closer to $600, you know? So it really depends on where you're located too. So think about those things as you're mapping out your budget and creating a budget that's less about replicating someone else's itinerary to the max, but instead focusing on, okay, what's feasible for me to still enjoy this trip and maybe do a few things they did if what they did may be out of your budget. But at the end of the day, research is your best friend, which is why I have some favorite travel websites that I use to find activities and things to do on my trips. The first one should be no surprise because they're like one of the biggest travel websites, and that is TripAdvisor. I really got back into using them within the past like year or two, and I have loved it. I did my Shibuya streetcar tour in Tokyo. I booked through them, as well as the Kyoto samurai experience. My brother and I were traveling around Japan. And if you were around last summer, the horseback riding tour I did while I was in LA was also booked through TripAdvisor. So I love them a lot. I have worked with them in the past, and I actually do really like their platform. I think it's very organized. You can see all the reviews, and I do read reviews, and I feel like the people on there definitely know what they're talking about. With that said, I do recommend TripAdvisor as well as the Viator. I went back on my notes to see which tours I've done recently. Oh, the Asakusa cooking class in Tokyo I did was booked through Viator, as well as my Hanoi motorbike tour that I did when I was in Vietnam. However, if you are on a solo trip, I have booked a lot of solo photo shoots, and I tend to find those on Airbnb experiences. I haven't done one this year from Airbnb experiences, but I've done a few in the past through them as well. Or you can look on social media, and if you look up the city you're visiting and put photographer, you may be able to find a local photographer that way and talk to them directly. That's how I found the photographer I used when I was in Hanoi. He's literally called Hanoi Photographer, which is genius for SEO purposes. So you might want to do that if you are looking for solo photo shoots. I am a researcher at heart, so I am all in TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Like, I am researching Black-owned restaurants in X city. I am looking at like solo activities in X city. I'm always researching different travel guides and itineraries. And social media, Pinterest is also a really great one because it's a literal search engine. So you can go in and kind of not only get blog posts, but other photo inspiration for your trips too. And I also recommend tapping into local influencer pages. So on Instagram or other social media, tapping into influencers who talk about specific cities only. So if you're going to Charleston, trying to find a Charleston influencer, because that way you find really cool events you would have never known about in other search engines. Okay, I think that is enough tips for now. If you have any other questions or want me to elaborate, maybe do a part 2 of this video going more in depth about anything, let me know in the comments below. I love travel planning. Again, I'm a Virgo. I love a good organized template, organized dashboard. So if you are like me and you want that too, be sure to check out the link in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. I hope you have the best trip possible. As always, stay curious, and I will see y'all in my next video, wherever that may be. Bye.